Hello everybody, Sophie Goose here with another fun little Glyos video. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded on this channel, but today I have something quite juicy and quite enjoyable to share with you guys, and that is a upcoming drop from Cappyspace that will be featuring a little bit of these guys, the Crayboth, who I've already shown off on this channel a few times now, but they being the kind of signature part of Cappyspace's drops. There's always at least a few little Crayboth here and there, and he does quite enjoy his Crayboth lore. I have been graciously provided by him with the new figures from his new drop that'll be coming out on September 26, 2020. All of the drop information will be in the description, along with links to his storefront, his Instagram page, all that good stuff. But a big thing that I am always very excited about when I talk about Cappy stuff is he is a gigantic lore nerd, even bigger lore nerd than me, and that's saying something. And I get to talk a little bit about not only the background on these guys, but on the background of the new figures he's got coming out. So just as a little primer at the beginning of this discussion of Crayboth here, the Crayboth, which are these little guys, I unfortunately don't have a Super Crayboth to show off, which is kind of a larger version of these guys that's made in a vinyl figure by Onell Design, are a species that was created by the Voss. Now, the Voss are kind of this nebulous species that come from outside of the Glyos system, actually, that have their hands in the creation of a couple of Glyos species. They're kind of the force that's behind the Vilzer, and they also created the Crayboth, which are these lovely little crustacean critters that are psychic. They're able to telepathically kind of communicate with one another. They have a kind of hive mind-ish thing going on. They can basically sense each other across great distances in space and that kind of thing. And basically at some point in their long past on their home planet of Odravon, I believe that's how it's pronounced, they decided to get away from their masters, most likely after finding out that they were going to be an energy source for the Vilzer. Yeah, nobody wants to be an energy source for the Vilzer. Let's just leave it like that. And basically they escaped out into the Zoranor Rift and then ended up in Glyos, where they ended up terraforming the planet of Allcray, which is where they currently reside. Basically, the lore from this drop is that during that escape from Odravon, the place where basically the Crayboth were all meeting up together, those being the polar jungles, which is kind of interesting. Odravon doesn't have ice caps, it has jungles at its poles. Basically had some native tribes that were living there, like little groups of Crayboth that were adapted to the jungle, that were basically gathering up the rest of the Crayboth and trying to help them to escape. And the rest of the Crayboth ended up being able to escape, but the ones that were native to the jungles there ended up getting destroyed. A fact that the Crayboth took very personally because, again, they're telepathic and they can communicate across each other and feel each other's presence kind of continuously. And needless to say, losing a gigantic amount of your population in a gigantic explosion from your creators trying to stop you from rebelling kind of put a little chip on their shoulder. So skip to modern day, and you have your little Crayboth toddling around in the Glyosverse, and they come across a strange new planet. And on that planet, it just so happens that there is little descendants of those original jungle-dwelling Crayboth that actually managed to survive the Voss's attack and managed to get out into Glyos. Basically, the idea being that either they were ones that escaped or ones that initially, before the Voss tried to stop the Crayboth from escaping, managed to be sent out on a mission into the Glyos system anyway and just kind of ended up avoiding the whole thing. Either way, we have some fun new figures to show off, and they have a little bit of intrigue of their own. So let me just bring these little guys down one at a time and we'll take a look at them. So first up, we have this little guy, Hoboth. So Hoboth is a bright orange. It's kind of hard to see on camera here with the lighting, but it's like a neon orangish kind of color. Reminds me of like tractor toys that you would have as a kid, like little construction vehicles that have that kind of bright orange, kind of play schooly color to it. And then accents in, let me see if I can get this to zoom in here properly. It's a little bit easier to see on the blaster there. You have accents of white, yellow, and then black. And I quite like the black that's used on this figure just because it looks like actual claws and shiny chitin that's on the fingertips. Because again, the Crayboth aren't really mammalian. They're more crustacean-like, have kind of more of an insect vibe to them. And then they have both for the underbelly, which is kind of a softer kind of part of their biology, and the tip of the blaster, they have this white, which just kind of drives home that this blaster arm that they have there is entirely organic, which is something that I've always thought is kind of neat about the Crayboth. Then another fun thing that you'll see throughout these is just a lovely little bit of tampografts that kind of get the tiger striping going through for this figure. I love that Cappy and a few other producers have been really just getting creative about where they put tampografts. Even on little Crayboths. Even on little Crayboths, we get fun little detail bits like these, like with the stripes, and these, and actually filling in all the little bits and parts there on the blaster so it looks like it actually has like a light in there or something that's ready to fire. So that's little Hoboth, who is the first of the 3 of the feral pods that are found on this mysterious new planet where the descendants of the original Odrivan jungle pods were. And just as a side note, if you were to ever run into any of these guys out in the Glyosverse, don't actually call them feral, please. Just because they come from the jungle and just because they have some feline aspects doesn't mean that they're feral. They're completely sentient. Don't be rude. And they actually know a little bit more about the world that they're on and about the Glyos system than you might think. So be nice. Anyway, moving on to the next figure, we have Novus, who is really, like, when I first saw this guy, I was like, oh, this one's my favorite. But then we got to the third one that I'll show you in a bit. But Novus is pretty interesting. The base PVC here is a really nice, vibrant white. There's been a couple of different bits of white PVC in Glyos over the time that have kind of a different vibrancy and a different kind of texture to them a little bit. I have a couple of examples from my collection, but this guy's like a nice, vibrant, kind of comes off a little bit bluish on camera and in certain lights, white, that is then accented with some really fun colors here. My favorite bit on here is actually the eyes. It's the only red bit that's on the entire figure, and it just makes his little eyeballs in there pop. And another thing that I like is all this metallic color on here, which is really fun. You know, given the lore with the Crayboth and where they kind of come from biologically, I like to think that this is maybe some organically grown metal-like kind of material. Because fun fact, for those of you that don't know, a lot of living things actually use metal in their biology. For example, humans, you know, the whole mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It has iron and sulfur groups in there. And it uses metal for transferring electrons to make energy. So metal is actually a part of a lot of biological creatures. So I kind of headcanon little Novus here as having like these weird plates of metal that have just slowly grown out, or chitin that somehow incorporates metal from the diet, something fun like that. So instead of walking around on the jungle floor of this planet that these pods have been hanging out on, he's got like little metal kind of boots to kind of avoid like maybe all the weird plant growth down there, or sharp rocks or predators even. And he's got like this really neat kind of juxtaposition here between the white going down to the silver and then to the black and gold. It's just really nice. And I don't think I've seen paint apps like this, just going full straight down with 3 different shades of metallic on a Crayboth before. And of course, uniting him with the other feral pod Crayboth is the use of the tiger stripes here. And the black just contrasts really nice with the white there and shows him off a little bit. And then we get to the last of the feral pod Crayboths, and my personal favorite, because I saw this guy when I was opening up the package, and I was just like, ooh, he's really cool, he's my favorite. And then I saw this guy. I love this little guy here. So this is Brawlcat, who is the last of the feral pod Crayboth here. And he uses a couple of interesting tampografts here. Obviously, he still has the stripes on the side, now done in an interesting orange. I have to wonder what's in the Brawlcat Crayboth diet that they're eating that's making not only their fingernails and their toenails and their claws a bright, vibrant orange, but also a skin coloration that's coming through. Maybe those are actually painted on. You can kind of have your own kind of interpretation of how that works. But I just really like this contrast to the green and the bent green, and then those little itty bitty in there yellow eyes that are coming through, which are a slightly different shade from what I can tell of the one that are on Hoboth here. Let me see if I can get those up close together. It's kind of hard to tell on camera, but I think it actually is a different shade. I could be wrong. And then obviously the big part that shows off at the top, this lovely red crest that comes through all the way to the back, kind of like a little helmet or armor, kind of, you know. If you can kind of look at this guy's color, maybe he looks a little bit similar to another kind of feline character you may or may not know. But I really do like this color scheme on this guy. There's something about green on Crayboth that just looks really good. I'm sure Cappy knows. He released an entire wave of Crayboth and tons of different shades of green. I love those little guys. But yeah, so at the end of the day, we have these three little boys, and the story, continuing with their lore, is that after, you know, the current kind of groups of Crayboth that are in the Glyos verse run across this kind of long-lost descendants of the jungle pods from Odrivan, find them on this abandoned planet. These guys have actually been slowly terraforming this planet that they've ended up on after kind of being sent out by the boss ages ago. And have just been kind of quietly terraforming this planet, making it their own, and have kind of come together despite their different groupings and their kind of different strains of Craybothness that they've come from. They've all kind of come together and started working together in this society. Again, don't call them feral. They know what they're doing, even if they live in the jungle. Don't be a jerk. And they've just been kind of slowly terraforming this planet, but then as they're terraforming it and bringing it into the kind of weird Sporian kind of environment that's seen on Alcray and back on Odrivan, they've stumbled into something, and that something is bad. They kind of cracked through a rift in the floor, and it has gotten very, very interesting down there, and something may or may not be coming up. It's become quite interesting. I'm excited to see where Cappy goes with this lore, but I absolutely love just this little set together. I don't know what it is about Cappy and the way that he designs stuff, but there's always some interesting kind of overarching theme or style or lore between the figures that he releases, that even if they have so many different color schemes and what they're going for in each one of them, there's always some sort of unifying factor, like the stripes for these guys and the feline kind of accents and overtures that these guys have. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Chef's kiss. I just love when Glyos producers take their time and just make some sort of fun little lore and kind of connections between their figures. Because, you know, it gives you a chance to make your own stories too. Something I've always loved about Onell and Spy Monkey and a few other ones is the way that when they give you lore, it not only adds on and makes its own thing, but it also adds on to everything that's come before and lets you kind of expand the Glyoverse in the way that you might want. It's fun. It's really fun. But I'm going to have all of the drop information in the description for these guys. I hope that you'll consider picking them up. They're a really fun little set, and you can't really go wrong with Crayboth in general. They just make for good little army pack builders, or just, you know, fun little figures to have out and do stuff out in the wild, and these guys fit that motif very well. And I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble about Odrivan and Sporian environments and the boss for several minutes, and I hope you have a good one.